Okay, good afternoon. We're just going into the afternoon now at Samee Charity, and it's another Samee Whiz session. And welcome to our lunchtime, prime time, Friday time. So we are happy to be here and bringing you more and more content each week. And we're just waiting for people as they start to come on now. People will start to join us very, very soon. So we'll just let them come in a little bit. Here they come. So we've got some people on with us, which is brilliant. So we've got another session this week, which is absolutely fantastic, and it's a special session. And you're going to find out a little bit more in a minute, and we'll introduce this week's guest. Just to let you know, you can comment on the actual comments on the post on Facebook. You can also send your questions through to ricky@samee.co.uk, and you can also send them through to sam@samee.co.uk. And we can also post comments that way. So if you've got anything and you can't comment on there, bring it in that way. And we've got a few people already saying hi. Michael's in and saying hi. Lorraine is in and saying what Friday dentastic peeps. So as you can tell, these are regulars that join us, and there's some other people coming on. So if you're on, say hello, say hi. And this week, and we've got the technical team behind the scenes as well, are always saying good afternoon to everyone. So they're the Samee team behind the scenes as well. So as people come on, we'll introduce them and say hi to them. But let's get going with this. And this week we have Mandy with us for a very special reason, which she's going to tell us in a moment. But I'm just going to hand over to Mandy now. Say thank you very much for joining us. And Mandy, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Hello everyone, thank you for inviting me to Ricky and the Samee Charity this afternoon. Yeah, my name is Mandy White, and I live in Bournemouth. I'm a local, live in Bournemouth. I've got 3 children, and my background is that I am a nurse. I've been qualified for a number of years. I've been in the management setting, and I'm now staff nurse within the Dorset Healthcare Community Trust, working on the community. I'm also involved, or have been involved in a number of charities over the years. I was one of the founder members of the Bournemouth Parent Carers Forum. It's running very strongly still. I've also been, and I am still a trustee of a little known national charity called the Ectodermal Dysplasia Society as their school liaison officer. Because one of my sons has got a very rare condition called that. I'm also involved with the Samee Charity, and that I am their safeguarding officer, having been a safeguarding officer for many years. And finally, I'm also have been secretary of a local football club, Paul Town Youth Football Club, that all my children are playing football with. So it's been quite a variety of support network that I've had over the years, and yeah, and I think that's about it really. Enough.
Wonderful. No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you. So you've had enough to keep you busy during the time then.
I have, yes, yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. And we've got a couple more that have joined us as well, and Emily saying hi as well. So it's good to see everyone on board. So like I said, this week is a very, very special Samee Whiz session, and it's a cause that the charity is getting behind as well and supporting, and we're really excited about it. So we wanted to introduce it before Christmas to let everyone know what's going to be happening. So I think let's just get into it and talk a little bit about that. And if you've got questions or comments, or you want to ask anything, drop them down in the comments or drop them through in an email. So Mandy, Jamie is the reason that we're here today. Can you tell us what happened at the start of this year?
Yeah, Jamie is my youngest child, my youngest son. He's extremely fit and healthy, and he is a footballer, plays for 2 football teams within the Bournemouth Youth and Dorset Youth League as well, as goalkeeper. So he's very fearless. Around Christmas time, when he was 14, he's in year 10 up at Winton and Glenmore Academy. He just started in year 10. He started complaining of headaches and feeling a little bit dizzy and not feeling too well. So, which was around December, middle of December, leading up to Christmas last year. So I took him to the doctors, and he'd also had a very rapid growth spurt. He was tall, by this time he was taller than I was. And they assumed that, like me, that he'd had the growth spurt. They had the excitement of Christmas coming up. It was the stress of obviously gone into year 10, where it's more intense. The last 2 years was education. So it was just really just a rest, and that he would settle down after Christmas. The headaches did actually settle down over Christmas. I think it was the excitement and everything like that, and leading into the new year. Had a lovely Christmas. And then on the 2nd of January this year, he started on the Thursday before he started back at school, before football season restarted. He complained of headaches again. Not persistent, they were very intermittent. Complained of headaches, saying that he felt dizzy, particularly when he stood up and things like that. So I assumed that we'd had a very lovely Christmas. It was a new year. It was, going back to school. He had a lot of late nights. So being a nurse, I sort of took his observations, because I've got everything, all the equipment here and everything. And I just sort of said to him, let's see how it goes over the weekend. Let's see how it settles down and everything like this. And he was having paracetamol. And he did slightly settle down. And then on the Saturday morning, he went off up to Slade's Farm, the 3G that's just opened up there. He was playing for the BCS team, which is the Junior Premier League. He was playing for as goalkeeper. And he went to start the match, and he nearly fainted, which was unlike him. He nearly fainted. He nearly collapsed. He was complaining of headaches and dizziness. So he came home, he rested all that weekend, and I was doing his observations. There was very different pictures going on there. So on the Monday, it was on the 6th of January, it was actually his birthday. He was 15. And I made a call into the doctors. He didn't want anything done. He went off to Splashdown actually with his friends, which was against my advice. Spoke to the doctor, who said, yep, bring him up and see us on the Tuesday. So on the Tuesday morning, I took him up to the doctors, and she was very good, did all the examinations, and she said that she thought he was having a growth spurt, the excitement of Christmas and New Year. He wasn't eating enough. Although he was eating, he wasn't eating the right kind of food. So, and then just to rest and have 2 hourly snacks and see how it goes and settle down. I wasn't altogether that happy, and I also pushed for her to do blood tests just in case he was anemic or anything. I just had a feeling there was a little bit more to it than that, but I thought, yep, we'll start that first of all. He didn't go to school on the Tuesday because he'd been sick. Went to school on the Wednesday, and everything was fine. And then on Thursday the 9th of January, I came home from work to be met my husband to say that he wasn't very well. He had a persistent headache. He looked very pale. And I phoned the doctors up and got an emergency appointment, but I couldn't get one till about 3-4 o'clock that afternoon, which was fine because I wasn't going to casualty and wait there for 6 or 7 hours for them to see him. So I took him to the doctors on the Thursday, 4 o'clock. We got in there because he was delayed. He did a thorough examinations and decided to send him straight to Poole Hospital for further test. By this time, Jamie couldn't walk very much at all. Was actually staggering onto one side, holding his head on one side, which was the right side. So we got through the rush hour traffic. Eventually, got to Poole Hospital at 6 o'clock. They took him straight in on the children's ward. They also couldn't work out what was wrong with him because they did his blood pressure and all sorts and was getting different readings, the same as I had been. They decided to take him down for a scan, a CT scan, in case there was anything, although they didn't think there was anything, although I had other ideas. 15 minutes I was told he would be there. An hour and a half later, they brought him back. But being a nurse, you obviously know the worst. And then 1 minute I heard a nurse say to the doctor, you need to get.
Okay. It's
okay. Gone home. They asked me to bring him back. And they took us into a room with Jamie, and they told us that he'd had a brain tumour. And that Yeah, he had a brain tumour. They were pretty sure it was cancerous. And yeah, that was the diagnosis. That was the shock of it all. And the start
Yeah,
of our journey.
yeah. Yeah, and a big shock to get just after Christmas and the New Year as well. And just to that, I know we've had a couple of glitches where things have glitched in and out with the technology, but everyone has got the main of the story, and I think the important bit has come out. And you know, just to save anyone waiting, we know that Jamie's okay, but we're going to take them through the story of what's happened, and the reason why we're here. So just take us through, once the diagnosis had happened, everything happened quite quickly. So just take us through that kind of time, getting that diagnosis and what happened then, and how everything unraveled quite quickly.
Yeah, after the diagnosis, obviously they explained what happened, and he was put suddenly on drips to reduce the swelling, because they said that, you know, if they had any delay, he would be paralysed and that he wouldn't be with us within the next 48 hours, because the actual tumour was pressing down on his brain and his mobility. They informed us that he would be operated on. When I asked them when, they actually said that night, and that he was being transferred to Wessex Neuro. And when I said when, I was told the ambulance was on its way. So by midnight, we were being blue lighted that night to Southampton, to Wessex Neuro, where we were met by the consultant, who happened to be, we were very lucky, very fortunate that he was the best neurosurgeon in the country, who had worked at Great Ormond Street. We were met by him and his team, who were absolutely amazing. They actually told us that, yeah, they'd seen the email, they'd seen the scans, he did have a brain tumour. At that stage, they would say it was a malignant, because all tumours are malignant until they had the biopsy, which made us feel slightly better, that, you know, and that they were actually going to be operating on him by 9 o'clock in the morning, because they wanted to take him down for an MRI first thing in the morning to see how extensive the tumour was and whereabouts it was as well, because they couldn't quite get a clear picture of the CT scan. So we were put in a side room. We were put with all other children on the neurosurgery ward, which was lovely, and the staff were amazing. 7 o'clock the following morning, Jamie was taken to MRI. Within an hour, he was back, and by 9 o'clock, he was taken into surgery. We were told that morning, we were told that it would take between 6 to 8 hours, depending on obviously the nature of the tumour, how they found it, and it would be then taken for a biopsy, and we would probably within a week get the results back, or they were going to try and push for it earlier. And on the Saturday, he'd be taken down for an MRI to check if they'd removed the tumour and if there was any malignancy anywhere else along the spine or anything. He went down at 9 o'clock. I was very fortunate that I went with him when they put him under the anaesthetic. I was even more fortunate that both the consultant and the nieces were Tottenham Hotspur supporters, which was what Jamie was, so they had something very much in common. We went home. We obviously had to get changed of clothing, so I had no changing of clothing. They told us to phone back about 3 o'clock if he hadn't come out of theatre. 3:30 came, and he hadn't come back, so I phoned. We'd come back to Bournemouth by this time, trying to get a little bit of rest at least. I phoned the ward to be told no, it was actually going to be a few more hours that he would still be in theatre for. So by this time we were getting quite worried, quite concerned, because obviously it was a long, long time. We travelled back. I had to be at the hospital. We travelled back to the hospital, did everything we needed to do, you know, we had coffee and costas and all sorts of stuff like this. And then they phoned me at 6 o'clock that night to say that they were hoping he would be out of theatre by about 9 o'clock. So needless to say, this was 12 hours after this happened. We were petrified by this time.
Yeah.
9 o'clock came and they hadn't phoned, and we were down in reception, because they said to us, just go down to reception, you know, because that was where theatres was, so we could go straight there. 9 o'clock came, they hadn't phoned, and then they actually phoned at 9:05, the ward, to say, could you come up to the ward? The consultant needs to speak to you and your husband urgently. So needless to say, we weren't prepared for that. My husband was sort of in pieces by this time. I'm more the stronger one, being the nurse and everything like that, thinking, yep, okay, let's get this. So we went up to the ward, we sat there, and the consultant and his registrar come in and told us it's all done. He's on his way to recovery, and it went better than we expected. And we're pretty certain we might have got the tumour out. But the reason being was that the actual particular tumour wasn't where they were expecting it, and it was wrapped around all the blood vessels. So we were already told that he had a 50-50 chance of whether he'd come out of theatre, and also whether he would be left with paralysed, lack of speech, eyesight, all sorts of things. We were obviously told, being the brain. But they weren't expecting it to be wrapped around the tumour, and it was more to the right and the centre of the actual brain, which is, they were actually quite shocked at where it was. And the actual tumour, particular one, this one that they've named, is associated with hereditary, a condition called von Hippner syndrome, which again he went on to be tested for, which is why it shocked them. It shocked them. And yeah, they then told us that within the hour we could go down to theatre, we could go down to recovery, we could bring him back. So we went down. We had to call at 10:15 that night, 12.5 hours after he went down, or less 13 hours after we last saw him. We went down into recovery, and he was left there with every tube coming out of his body, drips and all sorts. And the first thing he said to me was, I don't like any of these tubes, I want them out. And he came back. We brought him back from theatre. He had everything. He had drips, he had NG tubes, catheters, he had everything in his body. And we brought him back from theatre about 11:15 that night. He came back, and yeah, I didn't leave him all weekend, all week.
Yeah, and that must have been just going through that experience in such a short space of time must have just been, even with your nursing background, that must have just been such a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts. And just describe that for us.
Yeah, it did. I mean, obviously, I've done palliative care and I've done all sorts of nursing over my 30-odd years of being qualified. And it's, I'm sort of very much the one where we'll sit and listen to people. And it's very different when you're actually on the other side. It's quite scary. Well, it's very scary. Because obviously, being the nurse, I had to support the family as well and try and talk them through it when I knew what the outcome could be. And that was a really hard time, especially when, it's your own son or it's your own child, and only 15 years old, and the youngest one. And the fact that he's such a sporty, he's never been ill. He's so sporty. I think that's what shocked us and everybody. And yeah, it's very different being on that other side. Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about the support, because I know that Jamie got some great support during this this time and the time following his operation. And that's one of the reasons we're here, which we're going to come on to and explain a little bit later. But just tell us about what that was like and how they helped and the difference that made.
It was incredible. We were really lucky because our eldest daughter, she'd just gone back. She was living in Liverpool at the time, and she'd just gone back 2 weeks before after being down here for Christmas. Because she was at Liverpool University in her final year, funnily enough. And she actually got the call. We had to put the call in to her when we got the diagnosis. And we're very fortunate because she's got amazing friends up there. And we phoned them to let her know. And she travelled down that night. She actually got to the hospital from Liverpool at 5 o'clock that morning to be with him. And they're very, very close. Our middle son, he was actually, he's got a very, very rare genetic condition, and he was actually at the hospital when they told us what the diagnosis was, and that Jamie, they weren't quite sure whether he would live or die. And his first reaction was, that shouldn't be him, Mum, that should be me. I'm the one that it should be happening to. And you know, and that was really hard because I couldn't support either of them because I had to support Jamie. And then, of course, we've got his football teams. They were absolutely incredible. It was, oh my God, we're so shocked and everything like this. The school itself, Winton School, were absolutely in shock. And I do know from talking to his previous head of year, they actually had to bring counsellors in, and actually they counselled the children because their children actually turned around and said, we're not playing football. We're not going in that seat. That's Jamie's. Jamie should be here with us. And I think that was a shock. And the Facebook messages I had, and also the night it happened, Jordan, my middle son, and his cousin set up a Smile for Jamie for Facebook page, GoFund page, because they wanted to put a smile back on his face. Their aim was to raise £200. It actually exceeded £1,700 within 3 or 4 weeks for Jamie. Wow. And that was incredible. We didn't realise how, you know, and I even had parents from the school message me that I'd never spoken to about it. And then to cap it all, we had a contact from Harry Redknapp. Harry Redknapp actually put it all on his Facebook page, put it on his Twitter. He donated. We're very fortunate that Jamie's friends with his grandson, Harry Jr. We then also had from Tottenham Hotspur players, we had shirts donated by my niece, who's friends with them, and also they heard that Jamie was a Spurs supporter. And the AFC Bournemouth players also got in contact as well, and they've donated various merchandise. Their goalkeeper, both their goalkeepers, has donated goalie gloves and goalie t-shirts and things. And that was done via one of Jamie's teammates, as an AFC Bournemouth under-18 player. And it affected him so badly that he got the AFC Bournemouth players involved. So yeah, we've had incredible support. And everybody's got that same message. How can a fit 15-year-old athletic footballer this happen to? It can happen to anybody. Life's very, very precious. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just I think that's kind of touched a little bit on why we've come here, because this support, and I know that Jamie wants to give back, which we're gonna talk about that. But can you just bring us up to the present day now? What has Jamie's journey been like from kind of like that initial stage, the diagnosis, the operation, coming out of hospital, and up to the present day? Take us through that.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't over by a long chalk. The challenge wasn't over. Within 2 weeks of him being discharged from hospital the first time, he insisted on going back to school. We were told that actually you've got to be resting, Jamie, and everything like that. So various careful planning and meetings with the school. He started going back 2.5 hours a week, 2.5 hours a day, sorry. But as and when he felt like it, which included one lesson and to mix with his friends as well. Unfortunately, and that was really good, and he did really, really well, but he was very, very tired as well. Unfortunately, on the 16th of February, when he was due to have half term, and then the intentions were we're going to increase it slightly more because he's doing really well, Jamie got rushed back into Wessex Neuro again because he was discovered to have fluid on the brain, and his his wound wasn't healing at all. So after we phoned them up, we got told, get him straight back up here again because he could be having brain damage. So we rushed him back up there, and the following day after a CT scan, he went back into theatre again for a further 5-hour operation to remove a brain flap because they were worried that the brain had become infected and he was going to get encephalitis. So we had that removed. He had fluid removed from the brain, and he had the brain the wound debribed and resutured again. He was in for 24 hours. It was more painful this time because he had the proper sutures put in. He was in for 24 hours and sent home. 3 days later, after he came home, my husband was then rushed back into hospital with obstruction, found to have kidney stones, and he was also very, very ill as well. So I had all this going on at home with Jamie and my husband as well. He returned to school. he was about to, or he had returned to school for about 3 hours a day. And then on the 23rd of March, lockdown came. So that was really, really hard because everything was going well until then. Because of lockdown, all his MRI scans, his eye appointments, because we also discovered that he had problems with his eyes and he was getting very blurred vision with his eye. So he was seen by Wessex Neuro again for that, and he had to wear an eye patch, which they were hoping was going to be temporary, but they didn't know whether he'd always have double vision or he had a very weakness in his eye. So that was another worry. So that was what he came out with. Lockdown came, which for us in a way was very good because it meant that there was no football, no schooling. So he actually didn't miss too much of it in the end because everyone else couldn't do it either. But for him, he then decided actually he's not having any of this. He's going to get fit because he wants to be back playing with his team in September. He was told at the hospital, because this was the name he had when he came out of theatre, that he will be back playing. He's not going to listen to anybody. No intention to listen to anybody, Mum. And he decided then that he was going to get fit. But unfortunately, he couldn't because we hadn't had any appointments or anything. So in April, we spoke to the consultant. He phoned us because we couldn't see him. First question Jamie had was, can I go back and play football and can I start riding my bike? So he did get told to calm down a bit. So the consultant said he had no problems with him doing little rides around the block and maybe just a little bit of a kick around with his family who knew him, sort of thing. So that's what he started doing. Unfortunately, on the first day, his round the block was a 30-mile trip to Sandbanks, where we found him.
Yeah.
And it turned out he was actually over on the beach with both the Harry Redknaps having a little chat to them. So he got into a little bit of trouble there. So he came back. Second day, he was at Bournemouth Pier because he wanted to take in the air and meet his friends. So again, he got into trouble again. So we had to actually stop him from going to ride his bike until he could assure us with his helmet on, because he had to wear a helmet, that he would do it. So he did calm down then. Had a little kick around with football. Anyway, he then carried on with his recovery, which was amazed everybody. And then in July, we had his MRI scan. He had to have his MRI scan, and we then had a telephone conversation with the consultant who phoned me. He actually phoned me a week before he was due to phone me, so it was quite a worrying time because we thought, oh no. To actually tell me that the scan had showed that he was all clear, didn't have any indication of any cancer, and he, in the words of the doctor, you wouldn't have thought I'd operated. Jamie can now lead a full and normal life again.
Amazing.
So to say the emotions here was pretty emotional. The scans also showed there was no cancer or anywhere in his body at all, which we were really quite concerned about. We then had the results of the genetic condition that they queried he had, and that also showed that he did not have the genetic condition and that they put it down to actually this was just a very bad luck one-off for him. He started, when lockdown opened up again, he started light training with his football teammates, which they were absolutely amazed about. And then his bike riding, he started having physio. So he was then down the gym. When gym opened, he was down the gym. He was then running every day because he said his words were, I've got something to prove to people that I'm not an invalid. And then bringing up to now, in September, Jamie resumed school full time, which was the first time since last Christmas. He went back to school full time. Back in year 11, start his GCSEs. And on the 12th of September, he took his rightful place on the football pitch with his teammates in goal. And amazing. That was the most amazing and emotional journey we've ever had. Nobody thought this was going to happen. He's only playing football Saturdays for one team now because we thought two was a bit much at the moment, just until he's got back into it. And 2 weeks ago, the plan was that he would not sit any exams whatsoever until January. He had the backup of the consultants, and the examination board were brilliant because obviously it's GCSEs. They'd already agreed that they're going to be lowering his exam results anyway, which we've had letters of support and break times they were going to do. But 2 weeks ago, he sat his mock exams with the rest of his classmates for 2 weeks.
Wonderful.
For 2 weeks, and we are hoping that the results so far we've had back is that actually he's passed. The ones he's had back, he's passed, which has been pretty emotional. We never thought would ever happen. He's very tired now. He is very tired, but he, you know, this is the journey he's been on. This is where we are today now. We've got the Jamie we never know back.
Good. Yeah. And that's Martin saying, quite rightly, Martin saying, great story, Mandy. I'm glad Jamie's back in action. And, you know, if you're getting value from this, you know, if you want to share any comments, please feel free to comment and join in the conversation on the Facebook. But just we have touched on it a little bit, but just touch a little bit on the impact that it had on everyone else, because we've talked about Jamie and we have talked about impact a little bit, but just touch on, you know, the whole journey really, and everything you've been through. What's the impact been on everyone else?
It's been it's very emotional. Obviously, it's brought the family closer together. Although we've always been a close family with 3 children, my husband and I, it's brought us even closer together. You know, I mean, we've got a family anyway, and I've got cousins and aunts and uncles he's got. And, you know, it's touched on everybody, because particularly the wider community, because everyone's saying, well, actually, why has this happened? This can happen to anybody. You know, even a footballer. The school's been amazing. And actually, you know, they've done various lessons and, you know, lectures on being kind to people, because we did have Jamie being teased a bit with his eye patch, which I would add, the most amazing thing is he had his appointment, and he's got very slight weakness and the eye is all put right, so he doesn't need to wear his eye patch. So we did initially have a lot of teasing there at school, which I went mad about, and they were very good. Immediately they actually had lessons on being kind to one another and the mental health impact of it, because obviously it has had a bit of a mental health impact on Jamie, because he's not been able to see his friends. But his friends are really good, because it's, Jamie, wear your helmet, because he has to wear a helmet for football, because this is part of his equipment now. And it's, Jamie, wear your helmet. So they've been absolutely amazing. The football team came down to see him when he was in hospital. They did a presentation of the AFC Bournemouth equipment, and they were all in tears. And it has had a huge impact on everybody, of the fact that actually, you know, it's a 15-year-old who, one of the fittest people you can meet. He's very self-opinionated. He's got even worse now he's had his operation, because it's actually, I want to do it and I will do it, which is great, And for Jamie himself, he's actually said to me, life's too short, Mum, let's start living it. And this is the impact that it's had on everybody. You know, and the fact that obviously lockdown's been very hard. Lockdown's been hard on everybody. For us, it's probably been a bit of a benefit, because it's made Jamie recover a bit more. But yeah, for us, it's been a pretty rubbish year, to say the least.
Yeah, and I think now it's time to kind of bring, you know, we've said to everyone there's a reason for this, and there's a reason we've taken you through the story, and I think it's now to kind of bring them to full picture about what's going to happen. So in January we have something special planned. It's really exciting. The Samee team are fully behind it as well. Some people are going to be joining him on some of this as well. But just tell everyone about what's going to be happening in January, and what we've got planned and why we've planned it for January.
Okay, so we can now finally actually publish it. From January the 8th for the month, we are going to be having various challenges, various events, various sporting events, fundraising. The charities we're going to be having it for, in particular, is Smile for Wessex, which is the charity that is supporting Wessex Neuro, and it provides them with equipment for vital operations, examinations, and various other challenges as well that they overcome. The reason, this is all Jamie. Originally, Jamie wanted to do a bike ride, but it's now snowballed in because so many people want to become involved. He's going to be giving a donation. It's going to be going to Cardiomyopathy UK. The reason being for this is that Jamie's very first senior school PE teacher sadly passed away with this, and he was only 36 4 years ago. He was a PE teacher, very fit like Jamie, so he wants to give a donation to cardiomyopathy. We've chosen, it's going to be the whole month. We've chosen the 8th of July for 8th of January, pardon me. It's because that is the weekend of the 9th of January that's the first anniversary of when Jamie had his diagnosis and when he was operated on. And that particular Friday was the day he was taken down to theatre. Now, we've chosen the whole of January because a lot of people, as I said, is getting involved. On the 15th of January, covering those 3 days, Jamie himself, along with the team from the Samee charity, who I have to say, we are very grateful, who are very supporting us on this, is going to be embarking on his biggest challenge to date. He's going to be doing a 150-mile bike ride, starting at Port Hospital, where he went into on that particular Thursday night. He's then going to go down to Yeovil, which is where our family are based. We have a large family down there, and they were behind Jamie, along with friends and relatives all down there. The following day, he's then going to be going via Salisbury to Southampton Wessex Neuro, which will be exactly where he was operated on. And that particular weekend we've chosen is because that was actually the weekend that he came out of hospital in a wheelchair, which is where he was. And then he's then obviously on the 3rd day, which is on the Sunday, they're all cycling back from Southampton back to Bournemouth, back to Port Hospital, which will cover 150 miles. So we're going to be, that's in the middle of the charity month, and we're going to be carrying on with it because we want everybody involved. We want to also start off, it's like the new year. We've been in lockdown. Lots of people have been learning new exercises, new routines, new hobbies. So we decided that actually, let's bring all that together. Let's bring the community together. You know, if anyone wants to do charity football matches, I know that Winton School were talking about doing a parents versus year 11 football match. And Winton and Glenmore, also I've heard this morning, are going to be behind it. The teachers are very enthusiastic about doing charities that particular month. And yeah, we're very excited about it because we know that we could make this very big. And actually Wessex Neuro, who are Smart for Wessex, are also behind us, and Cardiomyopathy are going to, you know, are our chosen charities. It's very hard because of lockdown, very hard because, you know, there's no funding about, but it's actually a case that Jamie also wants to raise awareness. This is his particular thing, that he wants to raise awareness of brain tumours, brain injuries, of anybody, but in particular the young, because what we didn't realise is when we were at our hospital, the young people, the young children that are diagnosed with brain tumours is actually more popular or more frequent than people actually realise. And the amazing work they do. And this is Jamie's way of actually giving back to the people that supported him and to the hospital and the consultants that actually supported him. So yeah, there's lots going on, and we're actually asking people now to get involved, to actually, can you do fundraising? Can you knit? Can you bake a cake, do raffles, do silent auctions, as well as obviously donating to the GoFund page that we've set up as well. Yeah, we're excited.
Brilliant, fantastic. And that's what we're running. So this is kind of the kickoff of the campaign just before Christmas to get everyone ready for January. And like Mandy's just said, you know, yes, donations will be great, and that's what we'd love people to do. But also, actually, if you want to do some fundraising and get behind it as well, that'll be great. And we're all gearing up for this big bike ride in January. I know, like we said, there are some of the Samee team that are going to be joining on that bike ride. Some of us are going to be working behind the scenes as well. So, you know, it's going to be really, really exciting and really good, and help Jamie ultimately what he wants to do, which is raise money to support these people that supported him, but also to support awareness. And I think that's a good thing. And actually, Michael has just said that 20 years ago, he saved the life of a young friend who too had a brain tumor, took them to A&E because they weren't making sense. They started having seizures 10 minutes after arriving, and said that she wouldn't have made it if he hadn't have taken her. So if someone acts slightly strange or weird, please take action and help them. And great story, Mandy, so well told. So it's great to see that people are kind of connecting with this and are getting value from this. So that's how people can get behind this. And I think we've kind of covered that as well, is that, you know, we've put the links up to the Smile for Wessex and cardiomyopathy that we mentioned, but we've also put the links up to the Facebook page for where all the information is going to be about what's going on. We've put the links up to the GoFundMe page there as well. So if you want to find out a bit more, you can have a look. And also the other way that people can help is make people aware, share what we're doing on social media, share this session. When it goes up, this Samee Wiz session will go up as a recording on the Samee page. So you can also share it with friends, tag people in, share it on your news feeds, and encourage people to watch it, because the more awareness that we can raise, the better. So I think that has brought us full circle and let everyone know what we're doing. Any final thoughts that you want to share with this, Mandy, and anything you want to add to this today?
No, I mean, obviously, you know, you've covered it all, Ricky. Just say thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for everyone for listening to me. Yeah, I mean, everybody's, you know, obviously got a story, but we've been through the mill. And, you know, Jamie's doing really, really well. He's, you know, he wants to make people aware that actually this can happen to anybody at any age. Yeah, and you know, as Michael said, you know, any weird thing, brain's a very delicate organ, and that's why it's very, you know, we have to be very careful. So thank you everybody for inviting me, and you know,
wonderful.
Let's get fundraising. Let's get out there.
Yes, brilliant. And that is wonderful. And Lorraine is saying that, you know, there's actually a lot of positives coming out of a very challenging situation. And I think that's the other thing that's nice about this story with Jamie, is that actually, you know, Jamie is showing that, you know, massive things can happen to you in life, and you can come back and you can actually live a full life as a result of that, and you can be positive about it and take lessons from that. So that's the other thing. So we're all going to get behind him. We want everyone else behind him. Thank you ever so much for sharing your story, Mandy, and joining us to bring that awareness to that. And we look forward to kicking this off in a big way in January. So, you know, let us know if you've got value from that. Let us share your comments. We're going to finish the session there for this week, but it has been an absolutely amazing session for you. Next week we have another inspirational story about a lady that we're working with who's setting up something that's helping her with her challenges. So we look forward to sharing that with you next Friday at 12. But yeah, this week, thank you ever so much, Mandy. It's been a great session to have you on board with us and share this. And it's a goodbye from me and a goodbye from Mandy, I'm sure.
Bye-bye. Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you. And Merry Christmas to you all.
Wonderful. And we will see you all next week, same time, same place.